Welcome to 5 and 5 from the One Stop Co-op Shop, where I discuss 5 key elements of a game in about 5 minutes. I'm Michael Kelly, and today I'm looking at FAZA, a game of alien invasion. Disclaimer that I was sent a review copy of this game. I hadn't heard of this one when the designer reached out, but the great artwork and promise of tactical play from the rulebook got me interested. But was I rewarded for my time? Let's find out and get to the list. My number 5 is a pro, but there are elements of it that could make it a mix or a con for some players, and those are the FAZA cards you draw when you damage motherships. In basic terms, your win condition in the game is to get a certain number of rebel units onto these motherships and then blow them up, but throwing a wrench in that is the fact that every time you damage one, you draw an event off the top of the deck. Some of them can give you a reward, like a cool item you can use throughout the game, but most of them will spawn more drone defenders and hit you with some other negative effect. And for me, this is mostly a positive because it gives the game a lot of its variety, especially in the little powers you can get sometimes. But what can bring it down for some players is that it's so swingy. As I mentioned, you can get a reward or a terrible penalty, so if you get a bunch of one and none of the other, the difficulty of the game can swing pretty drastically. Moving on to my number 4, this one is a full-on con, and that's the fact that the gameplay is pretty simple and pretty repetitive. I would compare the weight of FAZA to something like Pandemic, but whereas even in a game like Pandemic you have sort of different strategies like where you put down your centers so you can teleport around and that kind of thing, in FAZA you pretty much only have one strategy: get rebels, go to the motherships, blow them up. Yes, you can change what order you do it in, and there is a lot of tactical play, more on that later, but overall it's going to feel like the same basic experience. Now, it's a pretty inexpensive game, great for families and casual gamers, but just realize that it's not going to blow you away with variety. But to be fair, something that is varied besides the FAZA cards I already mentioned is my number 3, which is the different classes you can play and the action cards they have available to them. You have 4 colors to choose from for your players, each one with a unique set of action cards, and even within the colors you have 2 different characters you can use, each with their own special ability. And sure, the different colors share a few action cards, but they all have something unique to them that gives them their own feel. And just talking about the action cards themselves, I love this, because what they've basically done is taken a system like Pandemic where you have a certain number of actions, but they've laid them out so that each of your actions is different, they can get injured, changing up what they can do for you. It's a really interesting system for such a light game, and I really enjoy it. I also have a full pro at my number 2, the biggest one for the game, and that is the tactical play that I mentioned earlier and how cooperative it is. So first of all, the player's action phase is simultaneous, meaning they can take turns taking actions in whatever order they like. I already love that. But on top of that, they all have ways to interact with each other. You can boost each other, everyone can move groups of rebels to fight the mothership even if they're not near you. You can use the points you get from defeating drones to put rebels near other players, and there's also a lot of tactical nuance in how the enemy motherships move. You can really predict where they'll go, bring them onto tiles that are better for you to fight on, and there's just more tactical play here, more tactical goodness than I expected from, again, a pretty light game. But getting to my number 1, this is going to be a mix, and it is the system that will absolutely make or break this game for you. Some players are going to love it and it'll go to a pro, some players are going to hate it down to a con. And what I'm talking about here is the core dice combat system in the game. So basically whenever a player is on a space with enemy drones, they can't move away, they can't really do much of anything, they have to fight. And you roll these dice, and barring modifiers, you have a 50-50 chance of killing the drones or suffering an injury. And that right there is the key crux of this point, because it is a huge swing between victory and defeat. If you get a bunch of hits, you get a ton of points, you suffer no negatives. If you roll all 3 misses and get 3 injuries, 4 kills your character, you can lose the game in an instant. Now, to be fair, and this is why it's a mix for me and not a con, there is a lot of mitigation in the player powers and where you fight. You can bring rebels with you to soak up some damage, so you don't have to put yourself in a position usually where you could die and lose the game. But if luck just is not on your side for several combats in a row, man, can this be a painful slog. Overall, I think FAZA could be a great game for certain crowds. I think the cooperative play is excellent, and I also think it's fun to play solo 2 or 3-handed. The game is simple enough that it's not too challenging. And I'm most going to recommend this one for family gamers and casual gamers, especially beer and pretzel gamers who don't mind a little bit of luck. And I don't say that as a disparagement of the game. I think this is a really nice design and has a lot of tactical play going on, but man, those combats can be so swingy that if you hate randomness, you should stay far away from this game because those combats will ruin it for you. But if your group can roll with that kind of thing, if you can laugh at the wackiness of a crazy combat roll or a ridiculous FAZA event, this one could be a ton of fun for you. If you want to see the game in action, and man, it's super quick, watch my playthrough that just popped up. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.